Well, of course, as we had indicated earlier there, that conversation about the factors that plague farmers, including factors like soil acidity and many other myriads of challenges that are created by the fact that very few people do actually get into the soil science, where you interrogate the quality of your soil through some sort of measurement or research. Well, let's get into the conversation, and I want to bring in Dr. Edward Karanja. And the question here, Doctor, is essentially, why is it important to do soil testing in the first place? Why is it such a critical topic?
Okay, thank you, Wakaba, and viewers for this show.
Yes. Please look at me. Yeah.
When we mention soil health, I take it just like the way we consider human health.
Yes.
When you go to the hospital, you cannot be given any medicine having not been taken through some test to know what is ailing you.
Yes.
So, and the same case, when we look at our soils, for many years, we've been a bit careless on how we utilize our soils. And we have assumed that probably there are natural ways of how the soils rejuvenate itself. But it is very important to carry out soil testing to know what has been depleted from the soil, what is in large amounts, and what is happening within the soil, so that from that point, then one is able to tell, is my soil healthy? Because a soil which is not healthy definitely cannot support healthy plants, and neither can it support also other animals and other aspects that are within an agro-ecosystem.
Let's take a step then back and look at the soil health itself as a concept, because most people have grown up with soil in the natural environment. You've grown up in the rural areas, so you don't necessarily think of this thing as a living thing with a thing that you can call health. And you're saying that health is critical to ensuring that soil is productive, right?
Yes.
So what then happens if it's not productive and this happens over a long period of time?
What I can say is that over time, we ought to know that soil is a living thing. Because within the soil, we have got various organisms that are living within it, which are very critical to how the soil functions in terms of agricultural productivity and supporting agriculture. So within the soil, we have got a lot of biodiversity that is within it. We have macroorganisms, microorganisms, and also we have other mechanisms that happen within the soil that support the plants which are to be grown within the soil. So when it comes to issues to do with the health of the soil, then it culminates to how all these factors play around within that ecosystem, how we have the various biological forms taking place, how we have the various chemical aspects, physical aspects within the soil, how they are interacting with one another, and to be able to support the crops that are being planted on the soil.
David, I want to bring you in here, and the fact of the matter is, with all that in mind, then what sort of challenges do you think that farmers then are facing in regards to accessing these types of services first, and even getting the knowledge that they need to test their soils? And I'm coming at this from the point of view knowing that you're a consultant in this space.
So I think for the longest time, after we had the extension service with drone as being offered publicly, and it was more of where farmers could gather together and then get that education. But over time, funding for that also thinned out. So it came to a point where now the farmer was on his own. Then technology was also very expensive in terms of the soil testing and the infrastructure required. Therefore, it was mainly a lab setup. But with this awareness that is coming up, I am seeing more effort from the county governments to educate and equip their farmers. I've seen some counties also bringing back what they are calling the agripreneur model, where it's more of a model where they're trying to bring extension closer. Yes. To that effect, also technology has advanced so that we are coming up with now technology that is portable and able, and like an agripreneur can have the technology to walk around. Technology has even gone further that now you have applications where we can, bots where you can ask questions and guide the farmers. So I think this awareness is coming at the right time, and we already have the technology, and I think the goodwill to align ourselves and equip farmers with the knowledge.
I want to take you back and to the fact that for many of us who grew up in the rural environment and consider ourselves farmers at heart, whether subsistence or otherwise, we've only just started hearing about soil testing and soil health now. Kenya has been around for 50, 60 years. Is it that this is innovation? Is it that this was not important before? Is it that this is technology that is available now? Why now?
I think in every system, it reaches a point it requires maintenance, and you have to pay attention to the maintenance.
Yes.
So even to our vehicles, if you just buy a vehicle and you have 5,000 kilometers,
yes.
Before when it gets now, you feel, okay, now my vehicle needs to be checked. Or you buy a new vehicle, it will serve you some very good years before now you need to have key attention to it. And that is for any production system. So if you look at when we started now doing serious farming and commercial farming,
yes.
apart from what was being done by our forefathers, it's now approaching 50, 60 years. And that is what now is biting us back. And then it came up point also neglected a lot in terms of how we used to practice the agroecology agriculture.
Yes.
And we introduced and used so much of the chemical dimension. So when we went off balance, then that started to bite us back. So it's a combination of we have a production system that we have to maintain, and then the practices that we have been doing are also biting back on us.
Dr. Adi, to bring you back into this conversation, then along the same lines, because I know that over the years there have been different sessional papers, lots of research around the agricultural space, and we have evolved over several different decades. When you think about the efforts that have been put in place to maintain the vehicle, as you're saying, in terms of equipping people with the right knowledge, the right systems, the right chemicals and that sort of thing, do you think that the policymakers, the leadership, research organizations have done their bit? Because then if we look at this as a challenge, then it has to be dealt with in a wholesome way that means that we don't either lead to more deterioration or essentially ruining of our soil.
Okay, thank you. I'll catch a bit from what Derek left. I want to add to his statement that actually it is not news that we are having these issues of soil health coming up now.
Yes.
This is something that has been in existence, but I think over time we've really not paid a lot of attention to it.
Yes.
So it is not something new that we are inventing or that is being brought on board at the moment. It's something that ought to have been factored in a long time ago. Now, coming now to what you just raised in regard to policies and what has been done, I would like to mention that a lot of research has been carried out to look into soil health matters. And unfortunately, a lot of these outputs from research activities, they are even in public domain. But much attention into putting into practice some of the recommendations from these outputs is what has been ailing us, in that we have very good policies, we have very good recommendations coming from various research activities, but when it comes to implementation of these recommendations by our farmers and the various stakeholders in agriculture, then we have a challenge there. So people tend to believe that there is nothing that has been done, but I would like to mention that a lot has been done in regarding to this subject. It's just an issue of picking out an application. Yes.
Let's then move to the topic of the day, which essentially is soil testing. So how do I know if my soil needs testing as a farmer? Or do we assume that all soil needs to get tested, then move from there?
Thank you. Any soil need to be tested. And the reason is to help the farmer know what is lacking in my soil, what is present in it, so that as a farmer, when I'm looking for fertilizer or when I'm looking for any input to supplement whatever may be lacking within the soil, then I know what am I really addressing within the soil. If you do not test the soil, chances are you end up putting inputs which are not necessary into the soil. Within the soil, when you're doing soil testing, basically a farmer would be interested to be looking at macro elements like nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium and magnesium, and micro elements within the soil. In addition to that, how is the acidity and basicity of the soil? Is the soil pH, and which is very, very critical when you're doing soil testing, because how acid or how basic the soil is influences how the various other elements are going to fare within the soil. So as a farmer, it will be very, very important for me to know how is my soil. Now, what has been happening is that a lot of, because many farmers don't do soil testing, so they end up using a lot of inputs, be it fertilizers, be it organic materials within the soil, blindly. And especially with fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers, we've seen there is a lot of imbalances of various elements within the soil that have taken place, and especially soil pH. We've made our soils to be very, very acidic, and this is not a good thing. And in addition to that, we have also accumulation of certain elements within the soil, like phosphorus, and when it is accompanied with a very low pH, then you have a lot of adsorption of the phosphorus within the soil. So the phosphorus is there, but it cannot be taken up by the plants. So farmers tend to use a lot of inputs. They tend to incur a lot of costs when they are addressing this issue, which should not be the case. Just like you, when you go to the hospital, if you are to be treated with any medicine within the hospital, then I can imagine you'd be walking out of the hospital with a very big bag of medicines. But when you are tested, then the doctor is only able to give you the light medicine that you need to use. And you do annual regular checkups. Yes, you do that. Yes.
So then, looking at the government's approach to, for example, the subsidy program and that kind of thing, where everybody gets the same thing, maybe then that needs modification, and we're saying that different regions, different farmers might require different things.
You are correct. Everyone and everyone's farm is always different. From my farm, it will be different from his, yours, and therefore when it also comes to subsidies, they need not to be applied. We need not to have a blanket application of saying that we need this type of fertilizer for all our farmers. And basically, when we do blanket recommendations for these subsidies, then we end up misusing over application, and also misuse of the fertilizers. And we've seen situations whereby there are farmers, for instance, farmers who are growing tea in highlands, and the farmers who are in lowlands. Those two soils are different, And so when you're recommending high nitrogenous fertilizers to farmers who are in highlands, and where we are having a lot of rains, and and farmers tend to apply a lot of these fertilizers within those areas, then you are likely also not only to have misuse or losses of this input in those areas, but you're also interfering with the ecosystem, because when you apply a lot of these inputs within the soil and they are not taken up by the plants, a lot of them, they end up in the rivers, and that's what leads to pollution. You have a lot of eutrophication happening next to agricultural areas, which contaminates the environment. So we need to have a way of testing various soils within our region. And I think that is something that can be done. There are people who are doing testings. I think we also don't have good database for probably on region-wise how much has been tested in various, because you'll find there are pockets of people who do analysis of their soils within various areas. And this is data that can be used to guide on what type of fertilizer do we need to give in a certain area. Do we need to give a lot of phosphorus within a certain area? Do we need to give a lot of nitrogen within a certain area? Or how do we design this? And in addition to that, not only on the synthetic fertilizers, I think we also lose focus on the organic fertilizers. They are also very, very important in agricultural ecosystems, and we are talking about soil health. Because when you are looking at synthetic fertilizers, they are only bringing in the element N, P, and K, phosphorus, nitrogen, and potassium. But within the soil, there are other biological requirements that are also needed. You need microorganisms to be able to break down these fertilizers, which will make the nutrients available to the crops. You also need to enhance buildup of organic matter within the soil. We are talking about carbon. Carbon has been lost from our soils, and we are losing it at a very alarming rate. And this is very, very, if we don't take care of it, it's something that we are not going even to realize productivity effects. Even when we add more fertilizers, if we are continue to deplete carbon the way we are depleting. And the only way of restoring carbon within the soil is just adding organic matter within the soil, which also regulates how the pH and other aspects also take place within the soil.
It is literally a catch-22 situation. I want to bring in Derek now, and I urge you, Dr. to hold your thought, because we'll come to that particular point. But let's talk about uptake of these services. How many people do you see testing? Is business good? Do people even know that they need to test? And then if not, how tough has it been for you to get people to test?
So we have had to deal first with the culture issue. Because from where we are coming from, especially if somebody does something for over 20 years, they more or less tend to believe themselves as experts. And so we first have to we have done a lot of capacity building and training to a specific region, matters soil health and also the soil testing. But there was a challenge of infrastructure, in which that, for example, do these farmers know how to collect samples by themselves? It becomes very easy for them to collect a sample and deliver it, let's say, to an agrovet.
So I have a question there, because when you break down the concept of soil testing, so you're talking about collecting a sample of soil from your farm, and then delivering it to the person who's testing, right? We've seen in medical systems where the doctor says you need to bring a stool or pee sample. It has to be fresh. Can't have lasted this, can't have traveled this. So is there an issue of proximity, for example? Then you've talked about technology. So talk to us about the process and maybe the challenges you faced and whether it's become easier or more difficult. So what happens first?
Basically, what happens so that you can say your soil testing has happened? So number one, you need basically how it used to happen. You call in an expert or consultant. They visit your farm. When they visit your farm, they collect the sample. And then
so if I have 1 acre, how many samples? Is there geographical distribution? What's the method?
So most of what has happened, especially in open agriculture, is we use what we call the random sampling. So on the random sampling, you're able to identify between 9 to 12 points,
Yes.
where you approximately collect between 75 to 100 grams per each point.
So unaenda tu unachota mchanga.
Yes, but most you can
no
do
particular
like
formula.
Yes.
To it unachukua tu mchanga in the triangulated points.
Yes, in the triangulated points, and
Yes.
then you also have to see at what depth you also, depending on your crop.
So yes.
Because if you are doing spinach, you
Yes.
don't need to go as much as 30 centimeters. But if you're doing, for example, coffee, the roots are actually slightly.
So soil testing is also driven by what you're planting.
Very true.
So can soil testing then also determine what you can plant in that space? So that if an expert looks and sees your soil in high in X, inaweza mea maembe kuliko avocado.
That comes.
Yes.
It's only a very few percentage of farmers that would approach from that dimension, because already most of them they have done their maths.
There is cultural
yes,
and history and
also
already
business.
Farmers. Yes.
Yes. So when somebody has bought land and he has
or inherited it
contracts
from his parents.
Yes, and it already had it has coffee planted.
Yes.
So it's difficult for them now to say that test my soil and see if I can remove the coffee.
Yes.
Or already you have business, let's say for cereals. So already you know in your mind you want to do this type of cereal, and you see how can I maintain and condition my soil so that it supports this, especially and now with the technology advancing nowadays, what we really for on the if the climate it's okay for the crop, then you can also always condition your soil to support the growth.
Yes.
But now to go back on the process,
yes,
after you have done collect this, and it's usually advised for 1 sample per acre. That is the recommended.
So 1 sample is the 75 grams you were talking about
times the points.
So for example, if we say 9 points,
yes,
so it's 9 points times 75 grams.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's about 750 to 1 kg.
Yeah. So are these tested individually ama zinachanganywa?
So
so what happens after
that
collection?
makes 1 sample. So after you collect,
yes,
you now combine that as 1 sample.
So you mix it into 1 sample.
Yes. Then the dynamics of that also varies with the crop, because you can have 1 acre, but you have split. So there's this section where you are collecting for you're planting, let's say, vegetables.
Yes.
This other section you have avocados. So then it's also very important to indicate that you take the sample for the vegetable area differently from the avocado area. So we're then able to advise and give recommendation based on the crop. Again, you also see where we have very slopey land. You'd also want to split your land based on the geography, because if for example down there because of the draining of nutrients and also erosion, you find maybe pneumonia. Yes. So if you mix the sample from somewhere upper compared to there, it may give not a very good representative sample.
Yes.
So you'd want, for example, not to split your farm into, let's say, per acre, but rather on how it is slanted. Yeah.
So what about those who say shamba yangu pande moja ni mawe sana, ingine the soil is good, maybe it's still just that 1 acre, but one side is really rocky?
Yeah, it goes even down, to what is the problem with this particular, or even isolating your samples and say, I see this is doing very well, but this particular area is affected. So what could be the problem with this? And isolating that also becomes very important, because then we're able to curate a recommendation specifically for that particular purpose. But now, what we're encouraging farmers, just to go back a bit, becomes very expensive if we follow that channel, because if we have one farmer in Nakuru, and we are supposed to send an agronomist all the way, becomes very, very difficult compared to if the farmer had the knowledge of the collecting samples and sending the sample to the labs. But we go see, also these logistics give a challenge.
Yes.
And we ask ourselves, can we go to the extra service of having this service being to the nearest agrovet? where they're able to get their fertilizer, where they're able to get their pesticide, can we host these services at this particular
The testing
point?
is done at the agrovet.
Yes. So with our technology now, we invest that to the agrovet, and within your nearest agrovet.
And training.
Yes, and we have trained, and the recommendation is mainly done by the machine. So within your agrovet, you are at least able to get that service. So it encourages and also makes it very cheap, because now we remove all these logistic costs. We remove the cost of some times back we'd want to do samples for many farmers in a region,
yes.
so we can reduce the cost per farmer
of coming from
yes.
so far away.
Yeah, but now when we have these services hosted by, for example, by the an agripreneur
Yes.
who is assigned to a particular ward, the cost goes drastically down, and now which encourages a lot of farmers
and also improves local knowledge.
Yes.
So, Doctor, I want to bring you back in, and the fact of the matter has been that in some instances, we are dealing with soil depletion, the depletion of biodiversity, exhaustion. Will testing identify that, so that then you know that this soil, what it simply needs is some sort of investment in terms of either leaving it fallow, or the introduction of native species of plants, and maybe even animals that were done away with, or for example, places where chemicals have been applied and have killed off bees and those sorts of things?
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would start by saying when you are looking at a soil testing aspect, it's a little bit broad.
Yes.
What you have, like what Derek was explaining, one way is to look at the macro and micro elements. These are basically what the plants require,
yes.
Like what I had mentioned about nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all those elements. We call it chemical analysis.
Yes.
That will be able to address the chemistry of your soil. Now, when now you come to the biological aspect of the soil, because we have three components. When you're looking at soil testing,
yes.
we actually have three components. You have the chemistry, the aspect,
yes.
you have the physical aspect, and you have the biological aspect. Now, physical aspect, basically this is looking at how your soil, in terms of how it can hold water, how it is able to allow penetration of the roots, and how it is also able to be able to aggregate. That is what we call the physical aspect, and its texture. It's always good to know: is my soil sandy soil? Is it loamy soil? Is it clay soil? Yeah.
Yes.
Now, when you come to what you asked about the biological aspect,
yes.
that's a different set of analysis. And in this case, you really want to know how the various life forms within the soil are. And within the soil, we have various organisms that play very critical roles. Things like termites.
Yes.
They are very, very critical within soil health.
Really? And people say it's a bit of
yes.
meaty and
yes. When you see termites
and to apply chemicals. Yes.
When they are eating the plants, when they are eating the houses, we really demonize them. But when you are applying plant materials or organic materials within the soil, it is the termites that will break down these organic materials, so that whatever is within the organic materials can be released into the soil for the plants to take them up. So they play a very critical role within the soil. Now, bacteria, fungi, all these microbes, and also nematodes, they are also very, very key in the soil, because when you apply inputs like fertilizers, it is these microorganisms that enhance. They act like bridges between the soil and also the plants. And some of them also, they support the plants to be able to leach out and get the various nutrients that are within the soil. So when you are looking at the biological aspect of the soil, and you are trying to see how the diversity of these organisms within the soil, when you have a soil that has very low diversity of these organisms, what it means is that your soil is almost dead. And even if you apply fertilizers, there is it's not going to be taken up by the plants. So you will not see the results of applying the fertilizers.
Yes.
So which is very, very also important. But also, you know, when people are doing soil testing, because farmers may ask, how do you analyze the biological aspects? You know, there are basic things that can guide a farmer to be able to tell whether the soil is healthy or it is not in terms of biological life. Yeah.
We've seen situations where farmers have things like anthills.
Yes.
Kwa shamba.
Yes.
And people will say that thing needs to go. And
Yes.
you're here saying that thing is important and might need to stay.
Yes.
So where is the balance then in terms of, and how do farmers recognize these things? Because you have to balance between productivity
Yes.
and maintaining your soil diversity.
Yes. Yes, it is very important to have a balance of various activities within the farm, and especially now we are talking about the termites.
Yeah.
I've talked about the beneficial aspect about the termites,
Yes.
breaking down the various organic matter within the soil. Now, termites still, they can destroy crops.
Yes.
And you know why they destroy the crops is because we have also interfered with how they function within the soil. For instance, when you have got a soil which is bare,
Yes.
A farmer is not adding any organic material to that particular soil,
Yes.
then termites which are present within the farm
Yes.
would go for the plants. And this is, yes, but if the same farm where we are having termites, we have got organic materials, we have mulching materials within the soil that have been left there,
Yes.
termites will not interfere with your crop. They will break down the other organic matters that are there.
Yes.
So we have to maintain them within the farm to certain levels.
Yes.
And we so that at least they can carry out these roles. Yes.
So you're saying essentially that the sorts of balances we have to create is living material that these creatures can feed on and that sort of thing.
Yes.
Well, I think we'll hold that right there. We want to go to a short commercial break to take a breather, but when we come back, the discussion, of course, continues, and we want to get into the nitty-gritty and talk to Derek about his experience. I know, of course, it's quite challenging convincing farmers, especially older ones, to get testing. He's going to talk to us about his experience getting farmers to agree to test their soil. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
Mlango wa kulima kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kukulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Farm Kenya.
Recharge on your current bouquet and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 1 month. Download StarTime's on app for unlimited entertainment. Anytime, anywhere. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
My main aim is to become a farmer because I want to improve the food supply of Kenya and the whole continent.
If I will grow a magical plant, I will grow a plant that produces books because I love reading during my leisure time.
Where are bananas typically grown?
Normally we plant bananas in the garden. Bananas grow mostly where we have a lot of rain.
My name is Nyesiga Oscar, founder Oscar Kampala, a Ugandan menswear suits brand. I came for the 40 under 40 awards, but still I came because of the support that I've been receiving from Kenya. So I felt like maybe it would be good if I come and also share my story with the young people in Kenya. I never started fashion at any point. I believe it's a talent. I just got the right mentorship and I put in a lot of time.
A twisted story of revenge that will steal your hearts. A daughter will bear the punishments for the sins of her mother.
Vengeance is soon going to be mine. Their lives will be ruined, and a daughter will bear the punishment.
This is not a love story. It is a story of hearts broken by revenge.
So what?
Broken faith.
Only on KTN Home.
Recharge on your current bouquet and get upgraded to the next high bouquet for 1 month. Download StarTime's on app for unlimited entertainment. Anytime, anywhere. StarTimes. Enjoy digital life.
Kwa mkono ambao unalima ardhi, mlango wa kulima kuwa mshindi, kuwa na uhakika sasa, kulea mustakabali wa baadaye. Tufanye kazi pamoja na tukue pamoja, kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu la Kenya. Kwa mkono ambao
Well, thank you indeed for staying with us here on Farm Kenya. Again, my name is Peter Wakaba. On this third part of the show, we'll of course get now in depth into the lived experience in terms of trying to convince the farmers to test their soil, and of course what the learnings from this will be. My guests are still here in studio, and that conversation continues in a few minutes. But first, let's take a look at our Farmer of the Day segment.
Serikali kuu imesema hii mbolea sio mzuri kulingana na uchunguzi wao. Sisi tumeuliza hapa mheshimiwa MCA wetu ambaye anafanya chini ya governor wetu wa Kakamega, ya kwamba ile mbolea yenye tumeletewa hapa kama ushahidi ni mbolea mzuri. Hii anasema alipandia, ilifanya vizuri, na huyu mwenye ameleta haikufanya vizuri. Sasa katikati ya hizi mbolea mbili, nani anadanganya mwingine? Hawa MCAs wenye tulichagua katika kaunti ya Kakamega, they should help us. Wanatakana wasaidie governor vile national MPs wanasaidia president kupata ukweli yenye inafanyika. Hatuseme governor ndiye alileta hii mbolea, but the whoever was given that responsibility to bring mbolea katika county ndiye ameleta hii mawe yenye tuko hapa hivi. Sasa how do you expect hii hali ngumu ya maisha, watu nataka tuwe na chakula mwezi wa 8 mwezi wa 7, alafu watu wametupea mawe ndio tumeweka kwa mashamba tumepandia mahindi. Seriously. Alafu MCA anakuja kusema hapa I'm not sure that he cannot cheat us. Hapo atudanganya namna gani? Hata amejua hii sio mbolea mzuri. Yeye kwake anajua sio mbolea mzuri. Lakini kwa sababu anaogopa mileage na ile kidogo kidogo anapewa huko, anatuambia ataendelee tumpandie, tutaangalia compensation. Compensation mwaka mzima. Tutakula nini mwezi wa 8? So we are telling our MCAs, sisi tuko na nyinyi, kama tuliwapea miaka 5 na umeenda hapo kulala, hamtusaidii, tunawakujia mmoja mmoja. Hasa kama huyu mwenye anasema he not sure. Huyu mwenye alichagua aliharibu kabisa wakati wao kuchagua huyu. Huyu nani alichagua huyu? We are not very happy. Na ile kazi inaendelea katika kaunti ya Kakamega.
That's when we see mambo inachemka kwa ground. But indeed, farmers across the country are quite frustrated. And of course, the fact that many people are having already applied the said fertilizer, a lot of people having gone out of pocket expenses to collect it, and having gone to apply it and then being told that this is not the correct thing, compounding the challenge of soil health. And bring us back to a conversation here. And we want to start off with you, Derek. You've seen the farmer. There are a lot of challenges, a lot of skepticism, a lot of confusion. When you set out into the soil health conversation and soil testing, just how difficult was it to convince a farmer? Our farmers are 64 years and over, mostly, that sort of thing. Has it been a tough conversation getting them to agree to test their soils?
Yeah, it has been a tough conversation. And what we have really tried on are one, demo farms.
Yes.
So setting up a demonstration farm where we know this is the right way. And I'm really glad for different organizations, especially under the CJR, who have sponsored a lot of demonstration farms. And it is from this point you're able to show, because our farmers believe in seeing, our farmers believe in results. So if you're able to demonstrate at this demo farm that you can actually achieve this, I've seen another thing, another biggest challenge was getting this education to their level, to their level where they can relate one-to-one and see, okay, this.
So breaking it down and making it simple.
Yes, removing it from the papers to information that they can consume. That was another challenge. And again, we are happy with the progress we are making. Now people are becoming aware this is the right way to go.
Talk to us about innovation and what role that has played in the space of getting farmers to actually agree to walk the talk, especially the innovations that you yourself are now applying, because farmers thought that this would continue to be expensive and cumbersome to do, but it's getting simpler. Why?
So technology. So anytime you reduce the time of doing any work, you're reducing the cost.
Yes.
So if we reduce the time from 15 to 21 days, all the way down to 15 minutes.
So it used to be 21 days.
Yes.
Now it's 15 minutes.
Yes, that's 15 minutes.
Over what period of time? 5 years,
and
10 years.
This now is the innovation you're inquiring about. Because technology keeps on advancing.
Yes.
Now we are, and especially you see, we have different technologies of accessing the chemical components and, you know, doing the analysis. So that has really reduced the costs. Up from about 7,500 per acre to about 1,200 to 800 shillings per acre. So that has really, again, that aspect has assisted to make the process very cheap. And the aspect of innovation, again, innovation in terms of franchising this sector. So we're moving from a lab based in Nairobi to a lab based in every agrovet. So again, that is innovation by itself. So we are making this service available, making this service, the technology very easy to use with minimal training, so that that service comes closer to the farmer. So by eliminating just the logistics, again, you slash again the cost. So innovation has played a very, very key role in ensuring that this service is coming closer and closer. We've also seen a lot of agriculture startups come from Kenya. And when you see what influences this is the need of the youthful population to make life better from where they come. And most of us come actually from agriculture. Most of us, apart from now the generation after 2010, we have a background in agriculture. We know what, we know about milking, we know about planting, we know about sowing and all that. So, and that has inspired a lot of people to come up with technology. We've seen a lot of investments in terms of the universities and also the sector bringing into the artificial intelligence into agriculture, bringing what we're calling, what I can see on the backdrop, Internet of Things into agriculture. And this is assisting us to come closer to what we call precision agriculture and understanding agriculture better and data-driven agriculture.
Wow, very well said. Dr.
Yes.
With events like the conference that's coming up in May and lots of beautiful things being said at the international level, lots of big conversations about putting money into agriculture for investment and development and that sort of thing. Do we actually get this translated into the things that we are talking about? And how long does it take? Are we doing enough in terms of investment, focus and policy to drive these conversations, drive them sustainably and drive them at a scale that can actually make a difference?
Thank you. I would say we are not so lost. We are somewhere, because I think when people started realizing that we have an issue to do with soil health. I think there are several initiatives which have been coined to address some of these issues. We have there are those who have gone into revolutionizing the farming systems to address the soil issue aspect.
Yes.
By this I mean we've seen different farming systems being developed by various consortiums. Like in our country here, we have mainly we've had traditional agriculture.
Yes.
We have a lot of farmers who are doing conventional agriculture. We've also have farmers now who are doing organic agriculture, and I happen to work with a big group of these farmers who are into organic agriculture and also in agroecology agriculture systems. And what I can say is that all these initiatives, they have been developed to try to address these challenges, because even for the suppliers of fertilizers who are mainly supplying the conventional farming systems, they have realized that over time the soils have really changed and the productivity has really gone down. And now there is a need to go back and see where is it that we went wrong. Did we go wrong in terms of interfering with our soil chemistry? Did we go wrong in interfering with our soil biological aspect? Have we gone wrong? Where is it? What has happened? Because we hear that farmers are really crying everywhere, and even for those that have been able to, do a bit of test a bit of their soils here and there, I think when it comes to also management, yes, I've done soil testing, because to test the soil is one thing, and to manage the soil is another thing, and so that you can have a sustainable sort of production system. So now when it comes to management, because that is where we find another challenges coming in. Now we have farmers who have ideas of how they can manage the various challenges they are finding within their soils, but we have a very huge group of our farmers who don't know how we need to manage our soils. And now comes in the issue of initiatives of how to address the various challenges that we are having in the soil. For instance, if you are farmers are struggling to do with the acidity of the soil, many farmers will go into rhyming of the soil, which really it's a short-term sort of mechanism, but it is not a sustainable way to manage the soil well. You would rather add in organic fertilizers into the soil, and by adding organic fertilizers, then you have so many different organic fertilizers. There are farmers who are making compost within their farms using locally available organic materials, and also recycling the manures from the farm. There are also farmers who are doing insect fertilizers, making fertilizers from insects. They have insect frass fertilizer, and when the benefits now of using organic materials to manage to address some of these challenges is that most of them, they don't really come with so much recommendations on how you need to apply them, because we have really depleted our soils. So we need to add a lot of these organic materials into the soil so that we can be able to address the soil health issues. So
making it as natural as
we need to take our soils to where they were about 60 years or 70 years ago, where farmers would just get into the farm, you plant your crops, and they produce well. And those times again, we had the luxury of farms. So a farmer would also have like a rotation, would keep sections of our farms into fallow, which would rejuvenate the soils. And these are things that are lacking, but these are the things now that we need now to look into as we look towards enhancing soil health within our agroecosystem. Otherwise, if these measures are not put into place, then we are likely to have agricultural productivity. I know it is only in sub-Saharan Africa where our agricultural productivity continue to decline as our population continue to increase. And this not only issues to do with soil health, but with the other factors like climate change, which are also influencing all these aspects. Because when we apply a lot of fertilizers, when you are manufacturing a lot of fertilizers, we are, this is coming together with a lot of emissions.
Yes.
We are having a lot of fossil fuels that are involved in the manufacture of these fertilizers. Yes. And when you look at also the chain of how the distribution of these fertilizers is happening, we have a lot of carbon. We are actually emitting a lot of carbon. So that contributes globally to all the challenges that we are seeing.
As we come to wind up, Derek, we've often talked about providing jobs within the agricultural space so that people don't necessarily have to become farmers, but can take up a job along the value chain. So what does it take to get into soil testing as a sort of a career, being a person who would then be supporting would-be farmers and farmers who are walking the talk to ensure that their productivity is tip-top and optimal?
Okay, so going back a little bit to our education system,
yes,
it has not done justice to especially agriculturalists.
Yes.
Because if you look at our curriculum right now, it really focuses on some way back issues that now have evolved.
Yes.
And more times you get somebody out of university or a TVET, and they are struggling to
relate what they learned with what is on the ground.
And what is on the ground. And what I call for is a lot of curiosity, especially from the part of somebody who wants to come into the sector.
Yes.
You also need to be very, very observant.
Personal initiative.
Yes. So you also need to be very, very observant, for example, with what Daktari is saying. So what are the current trends? You also need to be very attentive to listen to what are the problems and the challenges, the farmers are facing. So that you're then able to, do your own research, do your own experiments, so that you're able to guide the farmers in the right direction. So it takes a lot of, apart from even the education, it takes a lot and causes a lot for a personal initiative for you to bridge from whichever career or sector you're coming into now to come to the field of soil testing.
Okay.
But just to add something that Daktari, to reiterate something Daktari has said, soil management should be the discussion. Because soil testing gives you numbers.
Yes.
Just numbers. But translating these numbers to practices, to calls for management, which is now where even the biggest challenge lies. Disseminating information.
Yes.
And people following recommendations.
Okay. Indeed, thank you. And I think our next conversation must be about management of soil so that we can then really make this conversation something that is leading to sustainable change. I'll give you 30 seconds, Dr. And the question then is, for organizations such as the one that you work for, ICP, and for people such as yourselves in positions of knowledge, talk to us very quickly about the initiatives that you're putting in place to enable young people like him get into this space and the others who are out there so that we can then make this widespread and broad-based conversation.
Thank you. It's good that you mentioned about the young people because, without the young people being integrated into agriculture, actually, from human perspective, manpower perspective, then you don't have sustainability. Yes. So having young people integrated into our agricultural ecosystem is very, very important, and activities. And ECP has been at the forefront in ensuring that we integrate young people within agriculture. And we have several initiatives that are going on. And one that relates to whatever is about to happen next week, in next month during the Soil Summit, is that we have got several projects. I work within one of the projects that is a SysCom project, which is comparing organic and conventional farming systems. And in this project, we are working with farmers. We are doing research not only how the conventional research where people do research within a certain area. In this case, we are doing research with farmers within their own farms. And when we are carrying out these research activities, we encourage the farmers to bring the young people who are within those communities to be part and parcel of the research activities, so that as we try to disseminate information relating to various agricultural technologies, be it composting for management of soil, vermicomposting, also the same, young people want things that are trending and things that will bring money fast. So we have initiatives that as composting. Now young people are making compost and packaging it and selling it to farmers, because for them they may say, we don't have farms to farm, but we can make compost and sell. We also have got insect-based fertilizers, like the FRAS fertilizer, which is a project that has really trained so many young people for free. They come, they are trained on how insects are kept and how insects are used to manage various organic waste. And we have a lot of young people who have these startups for insect-based fertilizers, which they are doing across the country. Besides that, there are other initiatives such as the use of biopesticides, because farmers really struggle. When you talk about soil health, it is not only about the fertilizers, it's also about the chemicals that we use to manage the pest, the diseases within the agro ecosystems. So biopesticides, so we have young people who are also taking up initiatives in trying to make these biopesticides. So they are trained.
So and it is a wide range.
Yes, it's very, very wide. So as an institution, we have so many initiatives that are geared towards the young people, so that they can do it indirectly. So where they supply the inputs to farmers, and they can also apply it directly where they're the ones involved in these initiatives.
And as ever, we are saying that it is down to your personal initiative and curiosity to find out what these are and where the opportunity does lie within that ecosystem. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Derek, of course, being a consultant, and he is the manager of a startup in that space, of course, walking the talk in terms of innovation technology in this space. And Daktari here, who is, of course, a scientist, and the man who is speaking innovation and knowledge into this conversation. Thank you very much for your time, both.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so on that note, we want to bring that conversation to a close here on Farm Kenya. It has indeed been an interesting conversation, and well, we of course will be back again tomorrow with our Tuesday edition of Farm Kenya. But from us here in studio, it is Kwaheri ya kuonana. My name is Peter Wakaba. It has indeed been a blast.
Na tukue pamoja kuimarisha Kenya ni jukumu